Let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully Nathan will join us. But we have a quorum and we have some guests as well. And let me just kind of review the ground rules. This meeting will be recorded and available on the Lunenburg Public Access channel tomorrow. If anybody does join us via Zoom, they can participate in the meeting by using the raise hand feature of Zoom. The agenda, which was published, lists our proposed topics for discussion this evening, and we'll have maybe an opportunity to add some items to the agenda if that's appropriate. That'll be determined by myself as the chair. We have footsteps, which seems to indicate that Nathan is going to join us. Nathan, I'll pass you down a copy of the November meeting minutes. Sorry to get those to you sooner.
No worries.
Yeah. We do have some members of the public here this evening. And I think Richard must know these folks. Would you like to introduce our members of the public, Richard?
That's Mr. William Laxo, Vice President of the Historical Commission, and Jennifer Sanderson, member of the Historical Commission, that will be presenting the Hometown Heroes banner program to us.
Okay, great. Welcome. Glad to have you here with us. All right, so hopefully this evening we're going to approve meeting minutes for May, August, October, and November. And I've distributed the meeting minutes for the 7th of November. I think I distributed the meeting minutes from the 2nd of May. Those came via Colin Dwyer. He did have those. At our meeting, we had discussed getting those, and fortunately, Colin had recorded those, and they will be approved this evening, and then we'll go ahead and look at the other sets of meeting minutes. We've, I think, reviewed the 8 August meeting minutes. I sent those out after looking at the AI transcript, and I'll tell you, Nathan, that's a great process, and hopefully others in the town will get to know about that and start to use it, make meeting minutes for all of our organizations a little easier to do. William, why don't you just go over the 10 October meeting minutes?
For 10 October, call to order. We did the introduction with Mr. Brian Gingras. Did I say that wrong? He did an introduction to the APDC committee members. We did a review of the minutes for September, which were approved by all present. Correspondence from Freedom's Way of Grant Program, looking to see if that's something that residents might need and able to support renovations and improvements. Old business town master plan meeting. The steering committee chair was Josie G. Member Scalabrini attended as a town resident and a comment ensuring the important percent into consideration with the 10-year master plan. The brochure mailer, Member Scalabrini provided a draft review of the mailer sample. We want to involve the homeowners in APDC and encourage involvement. District historical markers, added value to the district, encourages foot traffic. Walking tour used to be conducted by the elementary school. Maybe a digital means added to the plan to encourage younger youth. New business was Mr. Gingras's discussion, the demolition by neglect conversation, Lancaster Ave house within the APDC, but resident not able to sustain a repair. Bylaw in question was put into play, protect the historical structures in the APD by law. States the town should take legal action if other enforcement methods are not the result of action by the resident. But we do have in our disposal to enforce the act of demolition by neglect, cannot use zone codes. Cease and desist is the next step. Asking town legal counsel to bring resident to court. Court is expensive and time consuming, unpleasant aspect of residents that don't have the means to repair and push residents to sell structure versus repair of the structure. New state energy code was discussed. 50% more renovation leads, causing the code, property maintenance code and nuisance bylaw. Lindbergh does not have one. If they had one, they could issue fees, another labor enforcement. We'll seek volunteers to help volunteer to conduct repairs, suggest meeting with town council to vote by law 21 Delta enforcement, which can be issued fines up to 300 per day per violation. Approved town hall renovation spring 22, condition with chimney repairs. APDC wanted to see estimate of repairs. Estimated 70K, came in at 300K. Worried about approved Ritter building estimate. No other business, and adjourned at 8:38.
Okay. Any questions or comments about those meeting minutes? Since I know that, we were, not all here for all sets of meeting minutes, so what I'd like to do is, go through the main, what we had was, McGrath, Dwyer, Scullin, and Lockwood were present. So all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from May 2nd, I need an approval or a motion.
Did you send those,
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna send them out right now in case I didn't. So let me forward these to.
yeah, I got the October ones, I don't see them. The May
Yeah,
ones.
okay. Nathan, I'm gonna send those to you. To your Gmail. Richard, I'm sending that to you. That's your, and then William. Okay, so that's the May meeting minutes. Let's move on to the August meeting minutes. Because that's a little more recent. Is there a motion to approve the August meeting minutes?
Yeah, let me see if I got those, one second. Anthony, when did you send them?
I think I sent those right after our November meeting. So let me. All right, I don't have those in my phone, so if you don't have those, we may have to delay approving the 8 August meeting minutes.
Okay, yeah, maybe if you could send
Yeah.
those to.
All right, so let's do the 2nd of May meeting minutes, which I just distributed to everybody. Is there a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
All right, so that William's got that. Is there a second?
Second.
And then Richard. Any questions or comments?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Okay, so those are the meeting minutes, which Wayne just went through. Is there a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
and then Richard, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
And then the 7 November meeting minutes, which I just distributed, is there a motion to approve those? I'll move to approve those.
Second.
And Richard seconds. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye. Okay, so I will make sure that everybody gets a copy of the 8 August meeting minutes. I didn't bring my computer, that would be a need for it. And I did, sorry. I thought I did send those out shortly after our November meeting. Okay, so we've got only one set of meeting minutes that we got to catch up on, and that's the August 8th meeting minutes. So we're making progress. Correspondence, there's a couple of things that aren't on the agenda that I'm gonna go ahead and add, but let me just talk first about the discussions with Chris Ruth regarding the town hall. They did get a bid. The bid was $258,000 for the roof and the replacement of the windows, and then the addition, one addendum was for repairing the two chimneys that are on the building versus removing the chimneys and patching the roof. That addition came in at $43,000. Overall, the bid exceeded what was available for the town to spend on town hall. It was significantly higher than what the estimate was.
So I'm sorry, the addition was to repair the chimneys versus.
And replacing and dispatching the holes with the chimney.
And that's, I'm sorry, 2 chimneys you mentioned?
Yeah.
Okay,
So there was only one bidder.
I'm sorry, the chimneys, where do they connect to right now? Are they just like,
They're not used at the moment.
do they connect to visible anything, or are
I
they?
think they just go to the cellar and they've been used for wood stoves or false stoves or probably something that one.
At some point, okay, gotcha, thanks.
What
What was the estimate again? Sorry.
It was $258,000 for the roof repairs, window replacements, and the clock tower repairs. And then there was an addition
Got that.
for the repair of the chimneys versus removing the chimneys. So what Chris has indicated to me is that they're going to split the work into phases and do what they can with what money has been appropriated by the town. In the first phase, I believe is gonna, not I believe, is gonna include the chimney work. And some portion of, I think, either the window replacement or the roof repairs. You know, he wasn't clear on what exactly phase one would be, other than to say that they were going to include the chimney work. So, you know, I went back and queried again about the potential for the Ritter project, which was estimated around the same time and done by the same architect. There's, I think, about $225,000 for both painting, roof repairs, and the handicap entryway, which I think it's now that's not gonna be an adequate amount of money. And what they've done is they've asked Damon to come up with a new architecture's estimate for the work, given what the pricing of construction materials and construction labor is today. And he said he would get back with us and let us know when they have that estimate. But the bottom line is that for both facilities, you know, we're kind of slow rolling the very critically needed repair for this building, as well as for town hall. You know, so I think that it's going to be I think it's something that we should continue to watch to make sure that this work doesn't languish, because both buildings are in desperate need of some maintenance.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up, it's not on the agenda with regards to the correspondence, was I did make the report as requested by the select board for the 28th November meeting that they had. And there were two things in there that I recommended at the time consider. And I didn't watch the November 28th meeting, so I'm not sure, you know, how my comments or suggestions were received. But one is, we really ought to do the report based on fiscal year for the town. You know, this year is a classic example where we have chair change in the middle of the calendar year, the fiscal year, as it should, because that's when the terms go from 1 July through 30 June.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I was doing a report for you know, the 6 months that I was chair, and you know, it seems to me like it'd make more sense if the town was doing their annual reports based on the beginning of the fiscal year. So that was one of the recommendations that I made. The second recommendation was that the town annually bring all of the volunteers, what's new in the way of digital equipment technology, so that, you know, we have a better understanding of what's going on. And in particular, I think that the town changing website format, website information should have really been something that was briefed to the volunteers so that we could have an input into how that would go. And what kind of surprised us, I mean, based on the comments that Brian Gingras had made when he joined us for our meeting a couple months ago. But, you know, for us as volunteers, you know, it's like, we're not in this every day looking at the stuff that the town's doing. And it was a pretty big change in how they're organizing the website. I provided a fair number of comments to Karen McCarty, one of which is that if you'd gone on the website after they made the change, if you went to look at the town bylaws, we're leaving the town's website. And, you know, and be careful because, you know, the town can't speak for that. And it's kind of like, no, that's part of the town's website information. And she has fixed that. She's gotten rid of the flag that was being driven by the software that the town uses. But there's other pieces here too, that I think that would be good for us to have, you know, some better understanding, like town's Facebook page, town's Instagram, you know. Those are things we could use to communicate, you know, what we're doing as well, if we have a way of understanding that technology and how input's being delivered to that. You know, so I think those are the two comments recommendations that I made to the select board that they consider. Is that annually, you know, we don't have to go, we don't want to, but if Kara and the IT people, you know, that are represented by Suzer, you know, if they have an annual meeting, they can say, hey, here are the changes that here's the updates that are gonna happen during the year. You know, we have a better idea as to what's going on. And then I think reports ought to be based on fiscal year, not just on calendar year. The last thing that isn't on the agenda, but we had talked about it in our November meeting, was that I mentioned that there was roofing work done next to the building that we ratified the CTA for at the November meeting. And I did follow up with Brian Gingras and by email, and Brian said that there was no building permit applied for that roof repair work. He says, so that meant a couple of things. One, they just didn't do it. The other one would be that they did a relatively small amount of roof repair. And he said that they wouldn't necessarily be expected to apply for a building permit. His criteria is if it was, you know, more than 100 square feet, he should have probably been for that work. So his assumption is that it wasn't more than 100 square feet. I think it was, but that's an issue for the building commissioner, not for us. But I think that, you know, once again, it kind of serves as an issue for us to make sure that if work is going to take place, that we have an opportunity to know about that work. And, you know, at the November meeting, you know, we talked about changing or our piece of paper that says someone's going to do some work. And then use the building commissioner as kind of the gatekeeper to make sure that if we do get a copy of a CTA and work takes place, that it'll be something that's monitored by the building commissioner, which I think is really good. And then connected to that is I got an email over the weekend from Kathy Clark asking if APDC had looked at the sign for 3 Lancaster Avenue, the building that's across the street from where we sit today. And we have not seen that. And I followed up with Richard, since I wasn't on the commission at the time that the 3 Lancaster Avenue work was, you know, submitted for review. And it turns out that there was no information about signage in that package, but there was some issues with regards to what was submitted versus what was built. And Richard, you want to, you know, address or make some comments about what you guys saw versus what actually took place with 3 Lancaster Avenue, with the idea that if we're going to approve, we're going to take the time to look at and review documents, then what is built is what we've reviewed and what we have approved. And of course, I think that the only way that that's going to happen successfully is with building commissioner involvement. So, Richard, you want to talk a little bit about 3 Lancaster Avenue?
The way things are now, once the CTA is approved, we don't really have much. There's no review process ongoing. So after it leaves here, we've been finding that they've been doing other things than what was presented. Maybe they had a change in attack to us. We don't really have anything in play that addresses that. So across the street, they presented in the architectural presentation of what was going to take place there, that the windows were going to be like for like, which we approved and but they put in different windows than they had said they would. I think it's been a constant thing pretty much since we started, when they if there's changes made down the line in their construction process, or if they're disregarding this, we don't know, but they're doing things other than what's presented to us. So I think there should be some type of process where we're involved ongoing. We've had the same problem at the historical commission, where we had to where we changed the format, where we're engaged with the person for demo delay through the process of demo delay, where they're reporting back to us, and it benefits both the town and the applicant in a way that we can decide at some point that process they're going through is useless, and that the place isn't going to be saved, and so we can improve it to be torn down ahead of the schedule of the demolition delay. But in the CTA process, there should be this same type of thing where we're engaged with the applicant through the construction process, so that we understand what's going on, and they're in communication if there's any changes that they want, that they can bring that to us, rather than things that just taking place out of sight of the APDC. And this has been a situation since the beginning. Things like this have happened.
Nathan, any comments?
No, I mean, it's definitely, you know, it's definitely worth considering as we this, I mean, what Richard's saying, but I don't know about the specifics of this particular case, but just in general, you approve a CTA, but if there's no sort of confirmation on the back end, then it's easy to imagine that kind of thing happening, so it's worth thinking about for sure.
The bylaw actually does stipulate that at the end of the project, you know, that there's supposed to be a compliance with what was approved in the CTA. I'm not exactly certain how the language is, but basically, you know, as I remember, you know, the bylaw does say you got to build what we approved, or you got to let us know what changes you're making.
Right, it's just about the process and then enforcing that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
how do you make sure that happens? Yeah.
I think the key is the building inspector. You know, one of the things one very obvious thing that I noticed, that there's a number of forms, if you're gonna apply for a building permit online, there's a number of forms that show right up in the building commissioner's homepage, his section of the website. And the CTA ought to be a part of that form process, because then it means that the applicant, the building, you know, permit applicant knows that he's got to have a CTA, and, you know, he sees what the form looks like. So that's and that doesn't require any bylaw change. That's a process that we got to make sure is enforced and happens. I sense from, you know, the conversations and the input that we've received from Brian, that he's more than willing to, you know, to enforce the town's requirements for the CTA. So we just need to work with them to get that done. And I think that ties in with, you know, changes to the notification process for us that we talked about at our November meeting. Okay, so that covers the correspondence. Nathan, once again, Nathan, I really appreciate you stepping in for the 16th of November Review Town Council. And I apologize for sending you there early, but I thought I had an appointment at 1:40, not 2
No
o'clock.
worries.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that conversation?
Yeah, let me, it went well. Let me do my best to remember. I have some notes here. I'm just gonna pull up. Yeah, so the general topic was, we'd had the building inspector in a previous meeting. And we had a conversation around to what extent we could enforce, our provisions of the APDC bylaw. So, excuse me. For short, the provisions of the bylaw, as we discussed with the building inspector, are enforceable. But in many cases, they involve going to court to, the town can issue cease and desist orders. And beyond that, you can go to court. And so cease and desist orders, as we discussed, can be useful for some like new construction stuff, but for something like demolition by neglect or whatever, they're inherently limited and problematic. The building inspector talked to us about some different options. And basically, town council said, yeah, what you're talking about here are non-criminal dispositions. And Lunenburg's existing bylaws do have a capacity to enforce non-criminal dispositions, which would include things like, fines that that can become criminal if not paid, or, fines on some periodic basis, like the fine goes up every week or every day or whatever. The fines can become criminal if not paid. They can become liens, which are actually referred to as attachments by way of order. But the long story short, if people want to push back on these, then you have to take them to court and have to go through that whole process. So there might be some value, as we discussed, in sort of having these non-criminal dispositions that kind of make clear up front that, listen, they're not optional. There's going to be some consequences, and they sort of quantify the consequences for folks, so they don't just like shrug them off, kind of thing. So Lunenburg has these non-criminal dispositions in place, but the thing is, to have them apply to the APD, we would have to cross-reference them with the section on enforcement of penalties, which I think is under MGL section C4021D or something. So there's a section in what bylaws can have non-criminal dispositions, and currently the APD bylaw is not in there, but if it were, then we could kind of have non-criminal penalties like that. I apologize for the lack of precision here, but this is at a high level what he walked me through. So
Can you give me an example of a town bylaw that is connected to those non-criminal penalties? Is our zoning?
I think some of the zoning bylaws are, I'm sorry, my notes weren't, I was just taking them on my phone and they weren't completely extensive, but we could look, they're in the bylaw, we could look them up.
Yeah.
I think some of the zoning bylaws are.
Probably an environmental too.
Yeah.
That would lead to fines in most towns.
Right.
Yeah.
Building department.
Mm.
So we talked about a few other things. So one thing he said is, okay, it's a simple bylaw change, but don't be shocked if you're trying to get this changed in town meeting. Don't be surprised if town kind of pushes back on that. You know what I'm saying? Because like you're basically enabling the board to, you're giving more teeth to the bylaw, but you're also enabling. take action against people in the APD more easily, and some people might take issue with that. But I think that kind of ties in with the other conversation I had with him at that meeting, which related to some of the things we talked about in terms of what opportunities. So we kind of have sticks, which is like really, hard actions we can think of with people. With rubber hoses, which is things like we can sort of slap people around a little bit, but that's not gonna be a lot of permanent damage, and just they're gonna do what they need to do, and then we can, whatever. And then carrots, which is like, hey, we want to help you do the right thing, so those three categories. So for example, so we talked about, and he needed to look into these to see to what is possible. And there's a couple different, so basically he's gonna look into feasibility of the town establishing like a loan program available, for example, to owners of historic homes to remediate issues with their homes, like some sort of something through the town that might be advantageous to owners to pursue. Another line of inquiry is, like that would be kind of like probably more that he's also going to look at grants with conditions. Like, are there cases where the town could make grants with certain conditions? Or liens, the ability of the town to take, give grants or loans in exchange for a lien on the property. He's going to look at the validity of all this. The loans piece could be done. He recommends we talked about that around. If we did it as part of the APD bylaw, that would have to get approved by the AG. If we just create it sort of outside of that bylaw, just as sort of a program which the town has, it's a tool that we could have available, the APD, but it's not under the scrutiny of the AG because it's not an APD bylaw. This is like starting to get outside of my understanding completely, but get the idea. But the general, optional loans, forced loans and liens, grants with conditions. What were the range of tools we might have available to us? He said he would look into that for us. And I think that that's if we can get that kind of understanding of what's possible and put that together in the package, that might help us, present there. We do have, these things we're talking about in terms of enforcement, these non-criminal dispositions, but explain it's really just all about making the town's bylaws real and serious and, cutting to the chase with folks. But look, our goal is not to punish people. We're also making these changes to bring these other things so that we can, the other thing is, just the last thing is, he mentioned it as we're if we create in the bylaw or outside the bylaw related to loans or grants, there will have to be objective criteria for them so that they're legally defensible. They have to be in the interest of the town, so, but, historical preservation is something that could be argued as in the interest of the town. So he's gonna do some research on that and define the parameters of that. But that's essentially what we discussed.
So the one that I'm most interested in is, providing some sort of a grant with a lien attached, some sort of we give you this in exchange for, like, for example, the house down the road on Lancaster Avenue, or maybe there would be some money that would come forward to, do some basic maintenance to keep the building from falling apart. But then a piece of that house, that lien would have to be cleared before that property could be sold, or the lien maybe becomes a way for the town to gain control of the property. I've seen that done successfully in cities where I've lived,
Yeah, you mentioned that.
So you're saying that he is gonna take a look at some language or some way of maybe setting up a program like that, or some sort of grant program, of a timetable.
I didn't get a time, so we should go back to him and sort of ask him when he's gonna be able to deliver that. So I apologize, I should have gotten it time bounded. But yeah, I would say your example of a lien, that would be like let's call that a forced loan, right? On the extreme end, it's like, that's probably there's probably something more extreme that could happen in court, like, so it's not the most extreme thing. Right?
Right.
That's right, so he's gonna look into that. He's gonna look into this like sort of loan program that's sort of like more freely available. It's not imposed, but it's available to you. Now that might be there in the context of other things, like, yeah, you can take the loan or leave the loan, but you don't take the loan, you don't do the cheating things, you might be in court, it might be, so it's, and he's also gonna look at other opportunities where the town actually could, under certain conditions, do a grant.
Okay.
But no, I think the lien one is pretty interesting too, and that's part of what should be looking at.
Okay. Well, thanks for the report, Nathan, and thanks for going to the meeting.
No, my pleasure.
Any comments, William, Richard, questions?
No, sounds good, way to go.
All right. Okay, Richard, you asked us to put the Hometown Heroes on the agenda, so we're at that point.
Okay, Ms. Anderson?
Okay, my name is Jennifer Sanderson. I reside at 848 Northfield Road in Lunenburg. I'm a member of the Historical Commission, and I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar, or if you're not, by pointing out, you've become familiar with the Hometown Heroes banner program. And we're actually surrounded, every town that borders Lunenburg is engaged in the program. It's nationwide, but statewide, it's received an amazing response. Every Bolton, Lancaster, Groton, they're everywhere. Do I need to show an example?
Pittsburgh has them on the downtown area.
Pittsburgh, Leominster, Lancaster, Bolton, Townsend, yeah, it runs the gamut. I can't think of anything more appropriate for Lunenburg's historical district than to have a memorial for our veterans who have served. It ranges the gamut from Civil War all the way to the War on Terror. Traditionally, the way the program works is families pay for the individual banners. The Historical Commission took a vote, and we find it important enough that we will fund the first 10 banners, which is how many you need to pay for to get the program off the ground and running. We've agreed to come up with that funding. If the town approves it, we'll need to get permission from the utility companies for the poles, or private property, depending on what utility pole it is. If it's Unitil, if it's telephone, or privately owned. I can't stress enough how important it is. We've got so many veterans out there who have just sacrificed so much, and it's not limited to just veterans, it's also for first responders. And this town is filled with them. Their silence, it should be broadcast. It really should. I have a selection of the banner available. We don't want to go with the smallest, but we don't want it to be overpowering as well. They're very tasteful. I'm sure you've seen examples. If not, I've got copies of them. So this is the round one of trying to get the program off the ground. From here, I would go to the Veterans Association and start contacting pole owners. But I really feel like we're given the one town that doesn't have them, and it would only accentuate, the area. So that's why I'm here.
How much does the banner cost, and what are the maintenance, expected maintenance?
There are 3 different options as far as the material used. The Sunbrella, I believe it's 6 to 8 years. Some of the others, it's less than that, but we would go for the higher quality. The actual pricing per banner would depend on how much lettering the individual family would want on it, because families do have the option of adding any, medals or honors they received. But the going rate for the simple form, which is really what we want, is for the parade, it's $104.95 for the banner and $69.50 for the brackets and poles to attach them.
And then who installs them? Would the town DPW install them, or would that pole owner install them?
That is a blank, I don't have an answer to that. I have all of the information about what they're made of, how much they cost, but it doesn't actually say who it is that's responsible for installing them. I haven't been able to take the program farther than just the initial contact with the organization, telling them that we're interested, bringing it to the historical commission, and instead of waiting for 10 families to decide that they can get together and do this on their own, the commission agrees that it would be a great way to spend our remaining budget. Get it off the ground, and I'm sure that once the ball is rolling, it takes off. It really does.
How do you pick the first 10?
Well, we discussed it at the commission. We do feel we want a broad gamut. But in particular, there are some World War II heroes in this town who have received no mention from the town whatsoever, though there are books about them. The French embassy came over and bestowed the French Legion of Honor on a World War II vet in this town, and there wasn't anything in the Sentinel, the Ledger, nothing. So there are some priorities, I feel, especially any veterans still alive from the World War II era. We haven't determined if we would do a lottery or approved, obviously, before we can start making promises. But there are definitely some people who should be recognized first. It's very generous, I think, of the commission to even actually really try to get this going, because it will take off. It's just a question of getting our feet wet, letting people know the program exists. My next step, if it was approved, would be to go to the Veterans Society, the VFW, the Senior Center. I have the Hometown Heroes Barrel Program actually sent me information for flyers that I can send to the utility companies, if they're willing to put it in with their bill, promoting the program.
So, 2 questions. What do you want from us?
Permission to begin the process of asking for permission to put the banners on the poles. And we feel that this should be in our village district. Other towns, it's snaked its way through, starting from the center of town to there's some on, back roads, because the response has been so great.
And who's the ultimate authority to approve this? Select board. So your step 1 is to come before us, get our approval, our concurrence. And then after we make a decision, then you would do the select board next. It's interesting that we're talking about a banner or a sign, because, I'm not sure we really have any authority over signage in the architectural district, architectural preservation district.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that we could, I completely endorse, I love the idea of the hometown banners. You can never thank people who have served enough. And I think that, I would entertain a motion if we want to do that, and we can have some more discussion about the appropriateness, but I would entertain a motion for us to go in discussion and then come up with either a, yes, let's do it, no, it's not, or we don't think you can, make a position, a statement on this, so.
Second.
Okay, so Richard and then Wim seconds. All right, so what are your feelings about the appropriateness or our authority to, you know, to deal with this topic?
We don't have authority to approve it, but we have a position to support it.
Okay, Nathan, you agree with that?
It's in the district.
I mean, that's probably right. I mean, yeah, so first of all, thank you for doing this. I totally support it. The modifications proposed on utility poles, I don't think they would constitute part of a historic property, although I think that our providing a supportive statement and just making a motion that we don't think we have authority over this and we support it and we have by no means intended to contest it would, be a nice supporting statement so that other boards going forward, like this select board, isn't wondering what we think about it or whatever. But yeah, I think I agree with Richard that it's probably not within our.
My concern was that anything that affects or alters the look of the town. I figured this would be a good place to start.
Yeah, planning board, I don't know, so there is a signage bylaw.
Exactly, I
Which
know
is-
it's varied over the years, so.
Yes, and there's a specific one for the village center that's defined in the village center bylaw. So I think having the same conversation with the planning board, just to get their similar, weigh in on this, I think everybody's really thankful for what you're doing and supportive of it, but it just might smooth the process.
Yeah, I would go to planning board next and,
Okay.
and then do all your veterans groups and stuff. and have
Excellent.
that.
I didn't want to go anywhere without my first thing is maintaining the integrity of
Yeah,
everything.
so once you have that, then you can then go to the select board
Okay,
and town manager. You might want to talk to the town manager too before you go to the select board. Let her know what you're thinking.
excellent.
If the world was perfect, when would you like to have the banners installed?
Ideally, I would like them before the spring.
Okay,
It takes literally from the time we place the order, they produce them relatively quickly. But I just feel it would be great to have them for Memorial Day.
Yeah.
That's,
Suggest if everything gets approved and moving forward, I think Memorial Day, like an unveiling
yeah,
as part of the Memorial Day ceremony, especially for the first
Right.
10,
Yeah,
would be something very nice.
yeah.
I also agree with the other members. I don't think the signage really falls in our jurisdiction, especially if we're attaching them to utility poles. But if a crazy driver takes one out, they're just gonna put a new one there and we don't, okay, the pole, so. But I also wanna say thank you, as somebody who has served, I think it's awesome that you guys are doing it. When I drive through Groton and Pittsburgh, I look at them, especially like the newer ones, we see the OIF folks in there. So thank you so much for taking that on.
my pleasure, my pleasure.
okay, so
Excellent. Thank you so much.
let's vote all those in favor of endorsing the idea, say aye. Aye,
All right,
and there's,
well, we need to make a motion, don't we?
we did,
We did.
yeah, we did, so. Richard, did you get the motion?
I didn't hear the second.
Or, excuse me, Wayne, did you get the motion?
I got a motion to discuss, seconded by me, all voted to endorse
Yeah,
and
Okay,
support.
got it.
I think that's a good reasonable, position for us to take. I do think that, having spent the last couple of days looking at zoning, I also got asked by the library to look at a sign issue for them. Believe it or not, and zoning controls signage in the town. And in particular, the village district, there's actually language in the village district for signs that talk about banners and things like that. So, I mean, I highly recommend you talk to them, sooner the better if we want to make a Memorial Day. And I think that you're gonna find that, there's gonna be a lot of support for this.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the planning board says we support, but you have to go before the zoning board of appeals or something out. They didn't get through one of the folks.
I would not want to be the person saying no.
Yeah, me.
On the flip side of that question, is that if folks, folks wanted to, I mean, this is for, the other thing is this is such a reasonable way to pay tribute, and say thank you to folks. And the price is very reasonable, but if folks wanted to contribute to this effort, do you have a way of receiving funds to?
There is a way, with Hometown Heroes for corporate sponsorship, for families to request aid from different organizations. There's a myriad of different avenues that
Okay.
are open to people.
Yeah,
But we, as the historical commission, felt that in our budget, it takes time to get it started. We're willing to contribute that. And, I'm sure off the top of my head, I think of quite a few people whose families would hesitate for a second, so.
oh my gosh, no, and in fact, if you could receive individual donations, if you have a way to receive individual donations that could let folks at Bloomberg know. I think that like, so many people would just be very happy to be able to, with a modest contribution, make such a lasting and visible impact,
Does Hometown Heroes, are they 501c3, so like if I wrote a check out to them, that they would
Yeah.
then be able to provide support? to
They are
families?
not a 501c3. No, they pass everything off to the person or institution coordinating the
Yeah.
program. They supply the banners, the brackets, the poles, free advertising if you request it, but they're in it for a profit.
Okay,
That I would want to talk to either the Veterans Affairs or someplace where we could possibly start, a funding program that would be outside of, baby steps.
Yeah, no.
Get it approved.
Yeah, definitely, no, that's great, thanks to the Historical Society and you for getting the ball rolling, that's amazing.
I don't wanna be the last town in Massachusetts.
I know, kid.
Kind of add to that, I want to pass you my card before you leave. There is at least 2 veterans groups that I know that would like to support stuff like that. So feel free to email me and I'll, get you some information.
Oh, I've got one right here,
Support
too,
in
so
that way.
that's,
So, they'll donate money.
Nice.
So, what we've done in the past is, it's like it's kind of like an adopt a veteran. So that, if you had a list of names, that organization would say, okay, here's $175 and put up the thing for Corporal John Smith.
Great,
And that organization wants to support that veteran.
yeah, nice.
So once we get a list of names and stuff, I can go to those organizations and ask them
fantastic,
to support.
excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Have town's best interest in hand. Have a wonderful night, everyone, happy
You too.
holidays.
Bye.
Okay, under old business, master plan activity, there's a master plan steering committee meeting, on Thursday. Unfortunately, I'm gonna be in the air. I'm going to Seattle on Thursday, so I will not be available to participate. But if anybody wants to, I think they do Zoom meetings, you could join that discussion. One of the things that, I did briefly mention is that, I met with the library director yesterday because the library is contemplating, a sign for the building. They have a very small sign out front. And, I suggested, I said, well, first of all, this is, I said, you're not bringing it because of APDC. And he goes, no, he says, we know that we're not governed by that. He said, we want the sign to add to the architectural and preservation district and the village district. So I suggested to him that, maybe the master planning process is a spot to go where we get some sort of a consolidated wayfinding signage program and building signage program identified as a part of the master plan. And the signage is complicated. And if anybody's done anything with signage, you know how difficult signage is. But for example, we're gonna be doing work on Town Hall, we're gonna be doing work at Ritter, we may potentially be doing work at TC Passios and doing work at Turkey Hill. In the foreseeable future, initiatives to the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee. And the library, you know, as a building that doesn't have very good signage, and they were saying, you know, what do you recommend? And I says, I think that the master planning company can give the town some direction on signage. You know, what's really ironic is that we have a digital sign for the high school, which I believe required variance to the zoning requirements. I don't think digital signs are allowed by the zoning law in the town of Lunenburg. I said, you know, so maybe there's some initiative that could be taken up as part of the master planning process. I don't know if the statement of work or the solicitation that the contractors responded to has anything in it about wayfinding signage or, you know, town signage. But I do know that the company and their other master planning efforts did do some of that. You know, they talked about how to make it easier to identify, you know, town facilities and embellish town public spaces. So the library director has communicated to his member of the trustee board that is a part of the master plan steering committee. So they may discuss this Thursday night to figure out if there's a way of creating a master plan signage program for the town of Lunenburg. Any
Yeah.
comments, questions about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I guess the one thing I would say is, I think it's a good idea to discuss this part, that the only issues like the master plan could take a while, right? And there's probably existing, I don't know, it's a library in the village.
Yes.
It is, of course, there's that, they might have some valid options they could pursue under that while the master plan's working itself out, which could, I don't know, be 2, 3, 5, whatever, however many years,
It's
right?
not supposed to be, it's supposed to be done by midsummer.
Sure, but the master plan itself isn't a bylaw, so then it's that, the master plan then itself drives.
Right.
So my point is like, rather than make the library work, wait X number of years. I think you're, get some thoughts into the plan. In the meantime, you know, maybe they can consult with someone like Damon McQuaid or someone who's really familiar with the town and the bylaws to get some options for what they might be able to do in the short term. Cause my guess is there's something that might, you know, yeah, there are, you know, regulations on it. But there might be something that meets their goals and is attractive. And an architect, you know, who's working on the renovation of this building might be able to help them find something that gets them through in the meantime and maybe even beyond.
I agree. In fact, one of the things that I suggested was, because they've already talked to a sign designer in Leominster.
Oh, great.
Yeah, you know, but what they got from him was underwhelming, and the board of trustees didn't like it. And I says, well, if you want something that's, you know, more significant, I says, maybe one of the things you could do, if it's not a requirement. See, I don't know what the solicitation says that the master planner is supposed to do. I says, but maybe what you could do, I said, I think you clearly have justification to write maybe a small sole source contract to over under and say, hey, come up with a sign for the library that could be used as a prototype for other buildings. So that's part of the discussion I think they're gonna have is, you know, the trustees would make that decision. And then I said, and by the way, I says, you know, signs are expensive and you may not want to pay for some design. I said, so just go out and get 2 or 3 other sign ideas from sign vendors. You know, there's one in Shirley, there's a couple in Leominster, there's some in, you know, Pittsburgh. So there's a mix, you know, but I think that like this building here is a classic example. There are 3 signs, 2 signs that are attached, and 1 sign that's actually 4 signs that are attached. And 1 sign out front, and then 1 general information sign, all here that talk about Ritter Memorial Library. And then Town Hall has Town Hall on it. And in fact, one of the things that I said when he was showing me they actually have the original drawings that built the library, had a sign on it, said public library. And the town chose not to put public library on the building when they built it. And Plain Jane, I says, well, the least they could have done was match the font for what's on Town Hall. It wasn't. And then what the vendor provided to them was Lunenburg Public Library in the same font that the architect had picked back when the building was designed in 2005. So, you know, it's just, I think signage is, like I said, signage is never easy. But the kind of, you know, propagate themselves without any kind of a plan is not a good thing to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a plan, it's in the village district bylaw, that's what would govern them. If they need something beyond what's there, I'm not sure what the appeal, I don't know if the planning board or the zoning board of appeals, or I don't know if it's appealable or whatever, but it's worth, I mean, there's something there now while you wait, you know.
The zoning requirements for signage basically talk about placement from the curb line back and then size. You know, there's not any real design criteria.
Yeah, there might be some things about materials, like I think, you know.
Like backlighting.
Yeah, backlight, yeah, exactly.
There's language about that.
But I mean, it would be a decent talking point as they go through the master town process, is if they, as they take these historical facilities and retrofit them into something else,
Yeah,
adding a common now, where maybe it says, you know, in wood, you know, town of Lunenburg, Ritter Building, previously known as, you know, whatever they agree on.
right.
But yeah, temporarily, they should go get their bids, but I think as the town wants to do a big master plan for the center, I think it should be a talking point for sure.
I do too.
Especially with all these buildings so close together, where if you drive by this building, it's a, you know, orange sign, and you hit the library, it's a blue sign. I mean, they're so close together that some kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, if they're all public, that's, yeah, good point, if they're all public buildings, I wonder if, I mean, if the town wants to have its own designs. I don't know if there's another process outside of zoning whereby the, you know, like the select board or whatever could just say, no, we're just like, we're only gonna fund it if it's like, you know, I don't know.
And I think that would come from whatever they agree upon in the master plan. Once that table's slapped, then it'll go to the zoning board, say, okay, update your rules to apply to this.
Hmm.
Because that's what the town, until then, they do what they want to do. You know, it's just a talking point to maybe be added whenever they slap the table on this town plan.
Yeah, I think the library's ready to do something, clearly. I mean, the sandwich board signs, they're pretty pathetic, you know, they're, I told him you were that, and he agreed. And the one stationary sign, the fixed sign that they have, it's in the ground, I mean, it's like 2 by 2, and it's hidden partially by a tree. In fact, I didn't realize they had that sign there. If I went to my meeting yesterday, it's like, oh, you know, this is, no, I've seen the sandwich board sign because it's kind of in the sidewalk. The other one is kind of tucked back underneath the shade of a tree. But, you know, so they want to do something, and I think that it's like, okay, so rather than go do something without there being some concurrence from other, just, you know, looking at the other facilities. And then I rode around, looked at this building, and it's like, 1, 2, it's like, whoa, there's a lot of signs over there sitting, and it's kind of crazy. And they remain, you know, I remember from looking at the design drawings that, you know, we looked at in August and then that we approved in September. Those signs stay on the building, and it's like, okay, you know. All right, the last thing that's on old business is our work plan activities. And one of the things that I put in the select board report for the year was that by the end of the first quarter of calendar year 2024, we're gonna have all this stuff done. So I'm gonna take the lead for making sure that we got a better brochure. I did talk to Cullen. He did not have any information on a brochure that he wanted to share with me. If he had something, he didn't feel like it was ready for us to review. send me your email or your Word file, William, so that I can start blending this stuff together. And then hopefully at the meeting, not in January, because, you know, there's not very much time between now and January 9th that I'm gonna spend time working on the APDC stuff, but hopefully by February, I'll have enough materials, we can sit around the table and say, yeah, this looks good, that doesn't, let's change this, let's change that. So that when we get to the March meeting, we can approve, a mailing going out to the members of property owners in the APD. Give them a brochure and then have a different way of getting notified that someone's gonna do something that might lead to us issuing a certificate to alter. Now, your comments, Nathan, at the November meeting, I went back and looked at the recording of our meeting as I was doing the meeting minutes, and your comment is right on the money, is that we give somebody a certificate to alter, and we've used that document, I think, and maybe not in the right way of getting them to tell us what they're going to do so that we can give them a quick turnaround or a quick answer on stuff that doesn't need to lead to a certificate. You know, so I think that was a very good distinction. We issue the certificate to alter. We got to figure out a way to make it easier for someone to tell us what they want to do. If it's substantial, there's gonna be more submittal requirements. If it's not substantial, like the roofing repair on 912 Mass Avenue, we don't wanna waste people's time, you know, so. But we're gonna have that done by the first quarter, end of the first quarter. Calendar 2020. All righty, anything else for us to discuss this evening? If not, I take a motion to adjourn. Oh, and our next meeting would be the 9th of January.
That's what I'm tracking, 9 Jan.
Would that work? Motion to adjourn,
Motion.
Richard? Second, Nathan? Okay, all those in favor say aye. All right, so we'll bring this to a close. Thank you very much, gentlemen.